Hey, what's up? My name is John Bonjour. I am a comic artist and film enthusiast. I have not drawn any art, but I would like to enthuse about some film today. We are talking about Boy Kills World. So Boy Kills World was directed by Moritz Moore, possibly Moritz Moore, possibly Moritz Moore. And it stars Bill Skarsgård and Jessica Rothe. This was a movie that I intended to see in theaters. I really hoped to go see it, but I was traveling at the time and it had a wildly short theatrical release. I have no idea why. Maybe it just immediately didn't make money. I don't know what the thought was on that. Point being, I missed it when it was in theaters, and it is now on Netflix. At least where I am, it's on Netflix. It's nice to know that I know my own taste well enough that this seemed like a movie I would enjoy to go see in theaters, and I was correct. I really wish I had seen this in a theater because it's a great movie. I will say, just from a critical perspective, if I'm looking at it as a film itself, there are some pretty glaring issues, some things that don't totally work about the film. I certainly don't hold that against the movie. I think it's just one of those things that's one thing is lost in service of another. I'll get into it. I'm going to get into it right now. This is going to be a spoiler-ish video just talking about the movie. So if you haven't already seen it, go see it. It's on Netflix, like I said. And if you have seen it, maybe watch it again or just stay here and watch the video. And honestly, do whatever you want. You don't have to watch the video, or if you have seen the movie, you got all kinds of options. Life is your oyster. That's not how the saying goes. I think this film's biggest weakness is its script, and I say that with the acknowledgement that some of my favorite things are also part of the script. The jokes specifically written in this movie have a tendency to be a little bit of that quippy Marvel-style humor without understanding any of what makes that, generally speaking, work, which is having relatable characters that we connect to, something that matters to us, something that we're emotionally invested in before trying to do those kinds of jokes. So having characters that make some pretty bad jokes, just generally speaking, doesn't really work if you don't care about the characters. Like one of the family's brothers or uncles or somebody, he's an actor in the movie or a writer, and he's this thespian kind of character. And I've seen that sort of character work really well. The Harley Quinn show, the way they handled Clayface, I think is a perfect example of what this was kind of trying to be. But it just doesn't work, and I don't think it's in delivery. It feels more like it's part of the writing. The lines they give that character feel pretty standard, pretty boring, honestly, for that kind of character. I feel like if you're gonna do that sort of a cliche, you have to use that and play with it instead of just doing the obvious jokes. Aside from that, and some I'll give you this, pretty bad pacing and repetitive moments, especially early on in the film, I think this is a wonderful time. And like I said before, most of those issues are kind of sacrifices to get to where we need to get to for the plot to actually happen. So yeah, the first 20-30 minutes feel like the same moment kind of repeating over and over and over and over. It's Bill Skarsgård repeating to himself, I have a mission, or whatever his mantra is. There's a couple of little fight moments, and you have to introduce that the characters in this world, the world itself, is just dog shit. It's a horrible place. And I get that you have to introduce that. You have to show that this is kind of a Hunger Games-y world. Not a good time, not a good place. I get all of that. I feel like there is a faster way that could have been introduced, but that's okay, because once you get past that, the movie really starts kicking off. By the time the action starts going, I was already thrilled, by the way, with the choreography. Some of the most amazing action choreography we've seen in recent times. Mind-blowing stuff. It really is just spectacular and creative. I love a creative fight scene. I feel like they're hard to find. The Shang-Chi bus fight is a great example of that. This one's got some moments with a cheese grater that I will not stop feeling in my bones, and that's not a compliment. I mean, it is, but I hate it. Aside from that splendid choreography, I do think once this movie starts kind of getting into gear, once our main character, Boy, finds his way into this team or, trio of people, that's when the movie solidifies what it's trying to be, where it's trying to go, the tone that it has. That's where the jokes start working. The joke of Boy completely not understanding one of his two teammates. It's one of the funniest bits I've seen in a movie in a really long time. It makes great use of the characters. It does a solid job playing around with that, and they use it just the right amount to where you build up to when that character dies and you expect that he's finally going to understand him, a la I Am Groot at the end of Guardians 3. Yeah, and he just doesn't. It's so funny. A great gag used perfectly. But from that point on, the movie plays in its own space. It starts to kind of develop its own rhythm, its own feeling, and it plays out more or less like a classic revenge John Wick kind of movie, with a little extra pizzazz kind of thrown in for good measure. For that kind of movie, this is a great B action drama comedy sort of thing. I think it fits very well in the line of The Beekeeper, something that's not supposed to be taken completely seriously, but definitely takes itself very seriously. That lends a certain genuineness to the movie that I think really plays. I also want to give quick props to Quinn Copeland, who plays the young Mina. She kills it. There are so many great little interactions between her and Bill Skarsgård. Also, H. Jon Benjamin as the voice of the internal monologue of Boy. That was an element that took me a little bit to get into. Just, I think the conceit of the movie is that he has this kind of ridiculous sort of Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat-y voice going on in his head. H. Jon Benjamin is a great casting for that. I think the concept of it is something that took me a little bit to get into. I think at first I had a hard time connecting the character and the voice. By the end of the movie, I think it worked perfectly. I actually forgot that was Archer. I don't know if that's a complaint against the film or if that's just my brain not clicking in with what the movie was doing. Whichever it is, it's not a problem by the end of it. And then the thing that really sold me on this movie, because I was kind of 50-50 on whether or not it knew what it was doing or if it was just lucking into some really good moments. And then by the end of the movie, I think they proved to me that they knew exactly what they were doing, and they knew that I was going to kind of question whether or not they knew what they were doing. I have this theory that there are two kinds of twists that a movie can do. One is the Sixth Sense kind of twist, where it's built up, layered in, gently, sort of eased, hinted at, and then eventually it all comes to a head and you realize, oh, I should have known, I've seen all the clues this whole time, and you're trying to solve the mystery, and it was a different mystery. I think that's one kind. The other kind, and this is the kind of twist that this movie has, is the movie is fully aware that you think the movie is dumb as hell and just not smart enough to try to pull anything over on you, and then it ends up doing a really good twist and you realize that it was aware of the genre, of the style, of everything it was doing. You underestimated the movie to the point that it surprises you. This is a film that does that brilliantly a couple of times. They changed the MacGuffin 3 or 4 times throughout the movie. I kind of thought, oh, okay, we're building toward this final battle. I never thought the movie was going to be Boy versus his mom. I thought that was going to eventually get to it, but it's Famke Janssen. I don't think that they're going to cast her for like a big action role. She plays her roles brilliantly. I just don't think that she's John Wick. So I was kind of trying to figure out who was going to be the final battle in this movie, and it just I kept raising up a character, and I kept thinking, oh, that must be the person that he's going to fight in the end. And then they just kept killing that character like 4 times throughout the movie. So it kept me on my toes. It was very surprising. And then having that final twist, again, spoilers, huge spoilers, having that final twist of him being a part of the family and brainwashed by his monk guy, whatever, shaman, I think. Anyway, having him be a part of the family and then brainwashed by that guy, and then having that moral dilemma of whether or not he should rejoin this family that he's been missing for so long, even though they're not what he thought they were. This is just a movie that does exactly what it sets out to do. It's a ridiculously entertaining, gory, fun, brilliantly choreographed, just great time of a movie. I highly recommend checking it out on Netflix. Again, if you haven't already seen it, you kind of know everything now, but it's still worth watching just for that choreography alone. Thank you for watching this video and checking out my channel. If you'd like to hear more of my thoughts on movies, comics, TV shows, pretty much anything, hit the like button, hit the subscribe, and comment down below what you'd like me to talk about next, or do none of those things because I am not your dad. Jessica Roth, and it was a movie that I intended to see. Really? I just got it, and you're gonna fly a helicopter past? Okay.